What's up? Are you coming or not? We are ready to go. This is going to be amazing. You need to make sure you are in the room at the Owning It and Living It experience November 1st through 3rd in Atlanta, Georgia. Don't worry about next year. Come this year. This year, I am giving away a fully renovated house, and I'm telling you right now that I'm not giving away one next year. Not only will you learn from me, you'll learn from so many amazing people in the industry. Henry Washington, Kendra Barnes, Jackie and Preston Perry, Lecrae Moore, Felipe, Ingrid, Sarah. You gotta be in the room though. This is the perfect conference to merge Black and brown culture with real estate knowledge. We are going to be dancing to Joanna and learning all about real estate. You're gonna actually learn some specific strategies that's gonna help you scale to the next level. Go ahead, go to the link below and grab your ticket today. Pastor Lee said, when you broke, you don't have options. I was like, options. You don't.
You really don't.
You don't.
And if you don't have options, the true you doesn't come out. But when you have options, the true you comes out. And money brings us options.
A person's wealth is determined by their assets, investments, and things that they own. I say true wealth is about how you live it. Your girl is back. Welcome to season 2 of Wealth Within Reach. Welcome back to another episode of Wealth Within Reach, and today's topic is a difficult conversation that should not be difficult with the right information. And we have the best person to talk about this topic today. We are talking about how money and faith in business and how they all intersect with what God has to say about it. And I'm excited to welcome our guest today, Lee Jenkins, pastor of Eagles Nest Church. He is the best person to talk about this topic today. And this episode is for you. If you are a person, you love the Lord and you feel like the Lord has not necessarily called you into a full-time ministry position. You're in whether it's business or a career, and you're trying to figure out, how does my building wealth journey impact the Bible and what God has to say, and you're curious about how that all navigates, this topic is for you. All right. And so thank you so much, Pastor Lee, for being here today.
It's great to be here.
Oh my gosh. So I have been visiting your church for about a year now. And we have lots of mutual friends.
Yes, we do.
And they've all been like, just go and talk to him. I'm like, no.
I'm friendly. I don't bite.
It wasn't you. And so I'm just like, try to stay in the background, low key. And we have a mutual friend that has been telling me to go and talk to you. And she connected us over lunch recently. And oh my gosh, the lunch we had just brought me so much joy. It was so awesome. And so I really appreciate you being on the podcast, because it was like after lunch, I was like, can you be on the podcast?
And I'm delighted to accept the invitation. I feel honored.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, so this is a really important conversation. What I love about your story, I actually learned this from one of the sermons, that you actually you still are, but you are a certified financial planner. And prior to becoming a pastor, you ran a whole financial planning business?
I sure did.
So talk to me, because that's unique.
Yes, it is.
Tell me about that.
The whole combination of money and God.
Yes.
But for 25 years, I was an investment advisor. And I was with Raymond James, Morgan Stanley. Then I had my own firm. So I was very successful. I dealt with entrepreneurs, corporate executives. I managed a lot of the HBCU endowment funds. So things were pretty awesome.
You were a big deal.
Yeah, I guess you could say I was kind of a big deal.
So I'm not going to say you're not, because you're a big deal now. But you're definitely in the financial world a big deal.
Thank you. Yes. Well, God really blessed me tremendously. And I was trained on Wall Street. So I lived in New York for a little while, came back to Atlanta, which is my hometown, and built the business from there. And by the way, as an investment advisor, I was on 100% commission.
Wow.
So people see us in these nice suits in these corner offices, but we have to, we only eat what we kill. That's what we used to say. Yes. And so basically I was an entrepreneur from day one.
Wow.
Even though I was in the financial business and I was in sales, because if you don't sell, then people won't do business with you.
Yep.
So that was what I did for 25 years.
Okay, so how in the world did you go from being this investment banker on Wall Street to becoming a pastor?
Wow. I get asked that question a lot. Well, I always have had one foot in the local church. I committed my life to Christ at 18. I was raised in the church and really sensed the call to ministry when I was a young man in college and wrestled with this whole business call that I had and a ministry call. Well, the business call won out, at least early in my life. And so my primary way that I served God was through the business world, but I never forgot the importance of the local church. In fact, I was always in the leadership at the churches that I went to. I was an elder. So for me, it was very natural. I lived in both of those worlds, ministry and the marketplace.
Yeah.
And I looked at my whole life as a ministry.
Wow. Okay. You said something. We got to pause because I think that this is really important because so oftentimes, I know I struggled with this too when I was in the corporate world and even going into business. How do I, if I am not in full-time ministry, how do I serve God within my 9-to-5 job or my business? What do you mean by that?
Well, that's one of the problems with too many Christians. We look at ministry as what we do behind a pulpit or what we do in church. But when you look at the Bible, most of the major characters in the Bible that God used were not in clergy type ministry. Okay. Actually, they were business people. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph worked in the government. Nehemiah worked in the government. So a lot of people who were in so-called ministry were really in the marketplace, and God used their calling in the marketplace to do ministry. So I always looked at everything I did as ministry because everywhere I go and people who I interact with, I represent Christ.
Yeah.
So I didn't have this dichotomy over those 25 years.
Yeah.
But there are some differences between the business world and the church. But I had to learn how to go in and out of both of those dynamics.
That's really good. And it's interesting how sometimes we have these jobs and we, serve in these different ways. And we, at the time, we don't know, why is God bringing this opportunity into my door today or whatever? But this is why I love like Romans 8:28, all things work together for good, because now later you're a pastor. And what I've loved and enjoyed about listening to you is that some pastors can make believers feel at least how we feel. That's not what they're saying, but we can hear a sermon and like the example of, money is the root of all evil.
Yes.
We're going to talk about that.
Yes.
And so I can hear that and feel bad about making money, feel bad about being ambitious. And what I've enjoyed about listening to you is that I feel like you equip believers like on how to, like what to do with the wealth that you gain. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah.
Are you tired of wasting so much time pulling data, reviewing comps, and trying to put together the financing to do your next deal? Guess what? You don't have to do all that. Backflip helps you to analyze properties instantly, helps you to pull high quality comps. You can actually apply for loans directly through the app while also choosing your best investment strategy. All you have to do is download the free Backflip app now and go on your way to make smarter, faster, and more profitable decisions today.
Well, a lot of pastors don't know how to talk about money, which is not all their fault. But you have to wonder, what in the world are you getting taught in seminary?
Yeah.
Because all through the Bible, there are stories about finances and business and how to handle money. In fact, there are over 2,000 verses in the Bible that how to deal with how to handle money and possessions.
So it's important.
16 out of the 38 parables in the Bible deal with how to handle money and possessions. Jesus said more about money and business than he did about heaven and hell
Wow.
and love.
Wow.
Okay. So this whole issue of business and money is close to God's heart. Now, one of the reasons it's close to God's heart is because how we handle money, how we think about it, how we use it, is often a barometer of our spiritual life. Jesus says, where your treasure is, there will your heart be also.
Where your bank statements
That's
show
right.
where your heart will be
That's
also.
right. That's right. So money influences us in a very spiritual way. So money is not just a secular thing. Money is spiritual. So a lot of people are in church and they aren't made to feel like handling money, doing business is something spiritual. So what I try to do is talk about money the way Jesus did.
Yeah.
And to make it not mysterious, okay? To demystify it.
Ooh, that's good.
Yeah.
That's
and
good.
But all through the Bible, money is talked about.
Yeah.
And but a lot of pastors also don't talk about it because they don't want people to think that they're money hungry. So
Okay, let's talk about that.
Yes.
Because that is a whole situation. And like even specifically with the verse, money is the root of all evil.
Yeah.
Is that what it really says?
No, it doesn't say that. That's probably the most misquoted verse in the Bible.
Yes.
It says that the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. So there are a couple of questions you have to ask yourself. And the number one question is, do I love money? How do you know whether or not you love money? What are some of the signs? And there are many, many signs. But I'd like to just look at that verse. I believe it's 1 Timothy 6:10. And it says, those who have longed for money or crave for money, it says they have wandered from God and experienced many sorrows.
Wow.
So those are a couple of signs.
Yeah.
Do you crave it? Do you long for it?
Yeah.
One of the ways you know you long for money is, do you compromise your integrity to get money? And so we have to be very careful. Money is a tool to be used.
Yes.
It's a tool to be mastered, but if you're not careful with it, it will master you.
Ooh.
Okay. So
I felt that in my soul.
Yeah.
That was good.
Money makes a good servant, but a terrible master.
Ooh, yes.
And for a lot of people, because they crave it, because they don't have the right perspective, they end up loving money. And that just means putting money in a place where it should not be in your life. It's a servant. It's a tool. Okay. It should be used for good.
Yeah.
Also, when you use money, one of the ways you could know whether or not you love it is it drawing you closer to God or further from God? A lot of people get money. All of a sudden, they stop going to church. They stop volunteering. They're on vacation every weekend.
Yeah.
And so your true heart really comes out when you have money. Money does an amazing thing. It magnifies who we are.
It reveals who you really are.
It really does. Because when you're broke and you're struggling, you don't have a lot of decisions you can make. Because you don't have freedom.
That. You were in a sermon. I quote you all the time now. Pastor Lee said, when you broke, you don't have options. I was like, options. You don't.
You really don't.
You don't.
And if you don't have options, the true you doesn't come out. But when you have options, the true you comes out. And money brings us options. And then one more way, and there are many, that you can tell whether you love money is, does it bring you sorrow or joy? Because a lot of people get money and their life goes downhill. They get paranoid. They get on an ego trip. They hurt people instead of helping people. So the bottom line, this subject is very important. And I try to demystify it and try to bring it to a level where everybody understands this is a part of our discipleship. Stewardship, financial stewardship is a part of our discipleship.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
as a pastor, if I teach people or encourage them to pray, to fast, to worship, then I should also be encouraging them to handle their money well.
That's good. That's so good. Oh, y'all, that was a lot of gems. Y'all need to just rewind that and listen to it again, okay? And take some notes. I should have told them to take notes. You need to get the notepad and start taking some notes. No, that's really good. And actually reminds me of this situation. Prior to going into real estate, I worked at a bank. And I remember I had one of my wealthiest clients. He used to come in. I mean, he was like uber wealthy. He was probably worth about $50 million, right? But he was one of those few wealthy clients that actually was pretty flashy. Most of my wealthy clients, you didn't know that they were wealthy, but he was one of the few who had the Ferraris and the watches. He just showed me all his Rolexes and stuff like that. And there was a period of time consistently for months where he came into the branch and he was just crying and crying. And I was like, what's wrong? What happened? And he was like, I had another friend commit suicide. Another friend take their life. And I just remember like, man, that was my kind of first moment of like, oh, wow. So money actually doesn't buy you happiness. Like it does provide options, but if I base my identity on money, then I could be in trouble. And I remember, I don't know why I said this prayer because my bank account did not reflect this prayer. I really don't know why. But I asked God, I said, God, if you decide, it wasn't even if you ever, it was almost like I knew I was going to be wealthy for some reason. Again, my bank account did not reflect it. And I was working a 9-to-5, but I asked God to help me to not be greedy, to literally help me to not be greedy, help me to be generous and to share my wealth, both like verbally and also like physically. And that's, it's really interesting that the Lord laid that on my heart when I was broke.
Wow.
And this is something, so I remember a call I had with clients. It was our first group call session. And for some reason, I was asking people, why are you interested in investing in real estate? And that first call, we got into the conversation of people they were really struggling, really trying to find out, I want to do this, but I don't want to be in sin. Like, I don't want to, what does God say about making money?
Yeah.
What does God say? And they were really struggling. So I think this conversation is just like really needed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing. You said, so we want to make money. We want to do well, but we want to make sure we're not being greedy.
Yes.
Overly ambitious or in sin. Because money has been placed up there with sin.
Yes.
Not righteousness.
Yes.
Yet when you look in the Bible, some of the greatest Bible characters were wealthy. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Job, King Solomon, King David. So when we read the Psalms, when we read Proverbs, when we read many of the stories in the Old Testament, we're reading about people who happen to be wealthy, whom God blessed and used.
Wow.
Now, that does not mean that everybody's supposed to be wealthy.
Right.
But everybody is supposed to maximize their stewardship potential. The parable of the talents is a good example. Matthew 25, the parable of the talents.
Yeah, explain for people
That's
who
exactly
may not
right.
know, though.
The parable of the talents, one person got one talent, which was a sum of money. The other one got 2 talents, and one got 5. These all represented different sums of money. Well, the person who got the 5 talent person doubled it, okay? And his master said, well done, thy good and faithful servant. By the way, the master represents God.
Okay.
And the people in the story, the servants who got the talents or the sum of money, represent us. And then the one that had 2 talents doubled his, and the master said, well done. But the person that had 1 talent hid.
Hoarded and buried it because they were afraid to lose it. Scarcity.
They were afraid. Scarcity mentality. But here's the thing. A lot of people look at stewardship as management only. But stewardship is about multiplication. It's because the steward got rebuked. He still managed it. He just put it in the ground. But he was rebuked and called wicked and lazy because he didn't multiply what God gave him. So wealth, stewardship, all of that, we have to ask ourselves the question, Lord, this is what you've given me. This is the potential you've given me. This is the influence you've given me. This is the wisdom and the knowledge and the experience you've given me. What am I supposed to do with it? How can I multiply this the best that I can for God's glory? Now, for a lot of people, that may not mean that you're going to make millions of dollars.
Right.
Or tens of millions, or to be a billionaire. I think that's one of the problems with today's society. We look at the millionaires, the decamillionaires, the billionaires as if that is the goal. That is not the goal. The goal is to reach your stewardship, your financial potential, and glorify God.
I love that.
But you still got to believe that God put something great in you.
Yes.
So, money has been put in the category of evil. And money is not evil and it's not righteous. Money is amoral. It doesn't have any significance until it gets in the hands of a person who's either going to do something evil with it or do something righteous with it.
Wow. No, that's so good. Okay, so we touched on the talents and specifically around the servant that went in,
buried it in the ground.
And so when you're saying this, I thought about a lot of our people, like a lot of Black people, brown people, specifically who have come from really rough situations. I mean, have really come up from the mud, right? Really was in situations where we grew up just not having everything we needed. And now we're at the place where we've invested in our financial literacy and we are interested in building wealth, but we're really afraid. We have that, we have the mentality like, I am afraid to invest because I don't want to lose this.
Yes.
I hear people all the time, they say, I talk to them about, strategy, buying their first property or their first investment. And they're like, I don't want to pay you X amount of money because I don't want to lose money, or I don't want to take this money and put this in this property because I'm going to lose all my money. I'm like, you're not losing it. You're investing it. So for a person who just has so much fear, what are just a couple tips to help them learn how to overcome that scarcity mindset so they can, because we can't save our way to wealth.
That's right. Well, I love the way you put it. You called it a scarcity mindset.
Yeah.
And sometimes our background culturally and personally can affect the way that we view risk. And by the way, the spiritual term for risk is faith. Okay. So people talk about faith, but then, the spiritual term for risk is faith.
That's good.
Because faith, you can't see what you want to see. You don't have to exercise faith for what you can see.
Yeah.
Faith is the substance of things, the hope for, the evidence of things not seen. Okay.
Say it one more time.
Yeah. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen.
Wow.
So that means you don't see it. You don't know how it's going to work out. You don't see the end result, but you do it anyway, hoping that it will turn out.
Yeah.
That is faith.
Yeah.
But then we get in business and we say, I don't want to take risk. Well, that doesn't make any sense because our whole Christian life is based on taking risks, stepping out on faith and not seeing the end result because we walk by faith not by sight.
That's good.
So a lot of people don't know how to integrate this whole thing of faith and risk in their life. And because of their background culturally, many African Americans are just now coming into this whole wealth building game.
Yes.
Now, we've built wealth, but I would say the last probably 20, 25 years, everybody has kind of gotten on board.
It's sexy now.
Yeah, that's right.
Like,
it's
it's something that you want. It's trendy.
When I first started talking about wealth building in churches, people would get up and walk out.
Wow.
I was early in this game.
Wow. You're OG.
I'm an OG. I mean, I wrote my first book on Wealth Building from a Biblical Perspective and an African American Perspective in 2001.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
And pastors like T.D. Jakes and the late Bishop Eddie Long and many other notable pastors were having me to come to their church, and small churches and medium-sized churches too. And probably half of those churches, the reception was not all that great.
Wow.
Because they're like, how dare you do a sermon on money?
Wow.
You know, how dare we take about, we came here to shout. We came here to feel good, not to be convicted about this secular subject.
Wow. Secular.
So I had to
That's
really
crazy.
teach them that it is spiritual.
Wow.
Handling money is a spiritual issue. So how do you get over fear? You have to understand that it is nothing but faith, and that you don't get a big reward if you don't take big risk.
That's good.
And somebody has to do it.
Yeah.
Anytime you see somebody who has made a lot of money, they've taken a big risk.
Yeah. That's true.
You can't have one without the other.
Yep.
And so you just have to feel the fear and do it anyway. Feel it.
Absolutely.
Because you're going to be scared.
Yes.
So that's
some people think that the fear is going to leave, and then I'm going to feel okay to take the risk. And I'm like, no, you actually gaining the experience and the reward is actually what helps the fear to quiet down.
Ooh, I love that.
Yeah.
The fear doesn't go away. And if it goes away, you probably aren't stepping out on faith. So, and the more you grow as a business person, the more risk you have to take to go to the next level.
That you're doing.
Yeah, no doubt.
Because it's a lot. Yeah.
I have been almost on the verge of just shaking with fear, even though I knew I was obeying God. Who starts a church after 25 years of being a successful investment advisor?
Right.
And I started the church when I was 50 years old.
Wow.
And walked away at the worst time in my business career.
Yeah.
Because we had just come out of the Great Recession.
Yep.
I had been making money, killing it. But for those 3 or 4 years, 2008, 2009, 2010, really 2011 and 2012, because I was trying to recover in 2011 and 2012. Who steps away from the business and says, I'm going to start over doing something else?
Wow. And on top of that, you had a pretty impressive job offer.
Yes, I did.
And it real quick before, because I want you to share that. But this happened to me too, similar. It wasn't the same. It wasn't as impressive as yours. But I my last year of working in corporate, I wanted to get outside the branch, and I wanted to work on this corporate side, treasury side. And I interviewed and did all the things, and I just kept not getting the job. And that's what, like that, those doors kept closing. And that's how God got my attention, that I need you to like look at me because I have something else for you. And so I finally took the leap, quit my job, and I got that call that I had been waiting on for 2 years. I didn't have to interview. I remember she called me. It was like 2 weeks after I quit. And she was like, Erica, guess what? I got the job for you. You want it? And I was like, no, man. I feel like God is calling me here. I don't know what he even is fully calling me to, but I feel like I just gotta go all in. And I said no.
Amazing.
And I would have had to take a pay cut.
Yeah.
My whole goal was just to get out of the branch and get more flexibility. That was it. My goal was so low. Yeah. Isn't it crazy? When you first start out, it's like, can I just make $2,000 a month? Right?
I know what you mean.
And trust in the Lord. So what did you have that same moment?
Yeah. I mean, I was frightened when let me take you back to when I started on Wall Street. We had to do cold calling. And this is back before mobile phones. Only super rich people had mobile phones in the late 1980s. And we would, everybody pretty much had a landline or office phone. That's how you got in touch with people. So during my training on Wall Street, they just handed us a whole bunch of numbers and names. And they tested us to see if we would call these people. And I was scared to death. shaking.
Cold calling is not fun at all. Yeah.
And I did it. I said, well, look, I played football. I mean, it's not like they're going to come out of the phone and tackle me or something, you know? So the bottom line, I was sweating. I was stammering. I was scared, and I was terrible at it. And I kept working at it. And I just kept doing it until the fear eventually subsided.
Wow.
And then I became a beast. Okay. And then I had a 25-year career. And here's the deal. Then I have to start back over doing something from scratch.
That you really didn't want to do.
That I did not want to do.
Yeah.
Now, I had a ministry call on me, but I never wanted to be a pastor. I never wanted to lead a church. And God just shook up my life. Yeah. People ask me, well, how did that happen? I believe you asked me. Well, it was really a series of things that happened over about a 7-year period. But if I had to use one word, it would be holy discontent.
Wow.
I was making a lot of money. I was living in a mansion. I was driving the car of my dreams. I was going on luxury vacations. I was being a good husband and a good father. Life could not have been better. Wearing designer and
all the
custom
best.
suits,
wow,
all that stuff. And I remember coming home one day, going through my circular driveway, and I remember asking myself, I think I'm called to more than this.
Wow.
I don't know if I'm really making an impact that will impact people's eternity. So I began to talk to some of my mentors about it. And by this time, I'm in my mid-40s. And my mentor said, well, man, you may be going through a midlife crisis. That's what they told me.
Yeah, that's what.
Yeah, and that was normal.
Yeah.
And they said, good thing about it, Lee, at least you're not trying to go out and buy Ferraris or something, And I was going through a midlife crisis. But the midlife crisis, God created it. And it was simply this. I wanted to give my life more to something that would impact eternity, to something that would not be temporal. And most of my clients, they were making money because I was their investment advisor.
Yes.
And what were they doing with it? Buying bigger houses, bigger boats, faster cars. So I'm doing something that is really not making a huge difference in terms of making this world a better place.
Yeah.
And that started to bother me. So I wrestled with for 7 years. Now I'm making money, and then the recession hit.
Yeah.
Boom. And that really woke me up. And it was like God said, see, you can do all this stuff and accumulate all this wealth, and it doesn't even have to be your fault, and it can go away.
Wow.
So what are you going to do now?
Right.
Jenkins.
Yeah.
That's kind of how God talks to me. And I said, Lord, I'm going to listen to you.
Yeah.
And it took me about 3 years wrestling with God. And I finally said, Lord, I give up.
Yeah, I
surrender.
Yeah.
I'll do whatever you want me to do. I cried uncle because my wealth a lot of it had evaporated.
Yes.
And it wasn't my fault. I didn't cause the subprime lending crisis.
Right.
I didn't cause the market to go down. My clients were in great investments.
Right.
But it woke me up. And it was as if God said,
great disruption.
Yeah, it was a great disruption.
Yeah.
But I experienced holy discontent. And then God caused me to go through the disruption like he did most people.
Yes.
So that's what thrust me into ministry.
Wow. Okay. So you've said yes, and you're going to start the church, and then you happen to get a phone call.
Yeah.
Talk to us about that. Did you know that not only am I a real estate investor, but I am also a licensed real estate agent, and I have a team of investor-friendly agents here in Atlanta too. My agents are amazing, and we help people buy, sell, and invest in real estate all over the Atlanta area. So if you are thinking about buying, selling, or investing in the Atlanta area, you can book a free 15-minute consultation with one of my agents, and we can figure out where you need to be. Go to the link down below and book your call.
Yeah, you know what's crazy is, boy, the devil is always at work. Because I had been successful, financially.
Yes.
I mean, I was a millionaire in my 30s.
Yeah.
Before people were talking about being millionaires. But let me say something about that before I answer your question.
Yes.
Wealthy people don't brag a lot about what they have, because I work with a couple of billionaires and a whole bunch of millionaires. And the quieter they were about their wealth, the more money they had. And the louder they were, the less money they had. So I've always said, you know what? Wealth whispers.
Ooh, that's good.
Wealth whispers.
That's good.
Fake wealth is loud.
Very loud.
Very loud.
Loud on their, like, where they, you know, what they wear,
That's exactly
what they
right.
say.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So I forgot the question that you asked me.
So I'm talking about the phone
offers.
call.
Yeah.
So you finally, you're ready to surrender.
I'm ready to surrender. And some other investment firms found out that I was leaving the business. And they probably thought I had lost my mind. There's no way this guy's going to walk away from this. So they called me. And I got so many offers from other investments firms to stay in the business. One firm offered me a $500,000 signing bonus.
Wow.
All I had to do was just put my name on national, world-renowned firm. We'll give you $500,000.
Wow.
And then a very prominent ministry person who does financial teaching all over the nation, radio show and all that. I won't say who it is.
Yeah, we won't say, but we'll leave you to figure out who it is.
That's right.
Yep.
Offered me a job to come and work with them.
Yeah.
And so I got all these opportunities, but God told me that I was supposed to start a church from scratch.
Wow.
So I said no to all these opportunities.
Wow.
And
the time where you needed it the most financially.
God, yes.
Right.
If this had been 2007 and God said, walk away from it and go start a church, I would have said, cool.
Yeah, because you're good.
Look at my 401k.
Yeah.
Look at my investment account.
Right.
Look at how much my house has appreciated. Look at these business deals I put together. I would have said, okay, Lord, because I was set. Right. I had the security blanket and it was thick.
Yes.
Okay.
Thick.
But God chose to wait until a lot of my wealth had evaporated. And then he called me to walk away from the business world at that moment and trust him with my future.
Wow.
And I said, this just doesn't make sense.
Doesn't.
And it doesn't feel good either. But I did it.
Yeah.
And I knew God was calling me to do it.
I love it.
And the rest is history.
The rest is history.
Yeah. So I turned down multi-million-dollar opportunities to start a church from scratch with 20 people at 50 years old.
Wow. God is faithful.
And sold the big house I was in.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know. I was like, well, we didn't need it anyway. I mean, my kids were going to college and all that.
Yes.
But we downsized. We got lean and mean. Because
Yeah.
I didn't know what my life was going to be like financially.
Right.
But God.
Woo. Ooh, I say it all the time. Woo. But God.
Stuff just started popping.
Yeah.
Not only at church, but through some of the other business deals I was involved in. And then I started doing consulting.
Yeah.
God showed me that what I had been doing for 25 years was not a waste and that he was going to use it just in a different way.
That's so good.
And then let me say one more thing before I shut up.
Go ahead.
In Luke chapter 5, Jesus encountered Simon Peter and they had not caught fish. And then Jesus told them to cast their nets to the other side. They caught all this fish and Simon Peter was just blown away. And then Jesus makes a profound statement. He said, from now on, you're going to fish for men. Now, what he's saying is that same skill you had fishing, I want you to keep that skill.
Yeah.
But I want you to use it now for kingdom purposes.
I love it.
So God showed me that I knew how to market.
Yep.
I knew how to sell.
Yep.
I knew how to do customer service.
Yep.
I knew about wealth building. I knew about a lot of things.
Yeah.
And I was thinking God wanted to throw all of that away.
Yeah.
But he said, no, you're gonna use all that. That wasn't a waste.
Yeah.
And so the bottom line, I'm a pastor, but I'm also a business coach and financial coach.
Yes.
I still help business people realize their dreams by
Yeah.
consulting with them and coaching them.
Yeah.
And help pastors and churches all over the nation.
I love it. And even when I told you this, when I went to your church, because you guys are moving into your permanent location across the street, which is such an, we're going to talk about that in a little bit, which is such an amazing dream, but you're in a temporary location. And I've been to lots of churches that have like in the temporary location, and y'all running like, I was like, from a business standpoint, I see business clues everywhere I go. And I can see like operations and how things like happen efficiently.
Mhm.
And I came to your church and I was like, oh, something different here. Like they know what they're doing within this temporary space, which I was amazed. So
Wow. Well, some of that is my fingerprint, obviously, because I'm the steward
yeah,
of the ministry.
yeah,
But I have a lot of great people.
yeah,
But the bottom line is I took my business experience and
Mhm.
skills and I applied it to ministry.
yeah,
Because the business I was in, you had to cross every T and dot every I if you
Yeah.
were going to handle somebody's money.
for sure.
Okay.
For sure.
So when I took clients out to eat breakfast or lunch, I went to expensive restaurants.
Mhm.
It was, you're trying to impress them, but you're also trying to show them that you are a person of excellence.
Yes.
Because the same way you, I hate to say it, the same way you treat people in a restaurant
Yes.
is the same way you'll treat their money.
Yes.
They want to see that you are a detailed person.
Yes, fully.
So
Especially
when
you're
I
handling
became,
my food.
yeah, that's exactly right. I know it. And if you're late, okay,
Mhm.
that I can't imagine
Mhm.
when I was in the investment business showing up for a appointment 1 minute late.
Wow.
How about this? Even showing up on time.
Mm.
I'm trying to get millions of dollars from these people to invest with me, and I'm going to show up late.
Mm-mm.
So when I became a pastor, I just applied some of the standards of excellence that I had as a businessman to the church.
Yeah.
And fortunately, people caught my spirit.
Yeah.
So we do get complimented. We're not perfect,
Right.
but we do get complimented a lot on the level of excellence that we operate by.
Yeah. And I actually can relate to that, because going from the banking world and managing a team and all of those things, I had no idea how God was going to use that in my life. And now in my business, like, people don't realize, yes, I'm an investor, but I actually run an entire business with a staff. And so they find out and they're like, oh, wow, they start working with us and they're like, oh my gosh, things run so efficiently. Or they come to a retreat and they're like, things are taken care of and you're relaxed. And how is that? I'm like, because I have a team. I was able to apply those same principles that I learned on someone else's dime, and I
Yes.
incorporate that in my business.
That's
I
so
love that
good.
so much. It's so important.
Yes.
Okay, so I want to change gears really quickly, because I think this is really important. Earlier we were talking about Proverbs, and right now, 39% of households have women who actually earn more than men right now. And my personal story really connects with this. When we first got married and we got started, and I told you this story, how God had other plans for our careers, and I happened to go into a line of business that at the time made more money than my husband. And I really experienced both of us really experienced some hard kind of critiques from the church. Someone told me that I wasn't sin because I made more money than my husband. And I'm sitting here, I'm young in my faith and young mom and wife, and I'm like, well, dang, like if the Lord wanted this to be different, then, he would have allowed my husband to, find an opportunity that made more money. It really, it affected me for a long time. And it wasn't until I surrounded myself with other believers, and I met other women who loved their husbands, who, were ambitious, and they did really well. And so Proverbs, we're talking about the Proverbs woman. And to me, the Proverbs woman is a great example of minding her business, helping grow the land. Can you speak on that? Because there are a lot of women who are ambitious and who have desires and dreams, and they may happen to be in a line of business where they may end up making more money than their husbands. How do we navigate that?
I'll speak to it in two ways.
Okay.
Actually, three. All throughout the Bible, there were successful women who did some extraordinary things. Mm-hmm. And so I think we look at the Bible too much from a male-dominant view. Mm-hmm. But there are entrepreneurs in the Bible that are women. Secondly, from experience, I'm married to a phenomenal Proverbs 31 woman. Have been married. Yeah. Martika, yeah. She's one of the top Mary Kay consultants in the world.
Wow,
literally.
I didn't know that.
Yes,
that's awesome.
She drives a pink Escalade,
nice.
The top of the line, the cars. Cadillac, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And so I remember when she first got in the business, I was her biggest cheerleader, and I still am. Mm-hmm. And so somebody asked me, suppose she makes more money than you. I'm like, go for it, girl. Hey, that means I could play more golf. Yes. And So too many men have egos, and our self-esteem is not healthy enough to be a cheerleader that we need to be for our wives. Mm. But from a biblical standpoint, I hate that so many women have been muted in terms of their entrepreneurial desires. Yeah. And I did a presentation years ago. I may write a book on this. Mm-hmm. It's called Act Like a Lady, Build Wealth Like a Man.
Ooh,
okay.
That's
you remember
good.
the Steve Harvey book?
Yeah,
okay.
I like that.
So let me tell you, act like a lady. You could still be feminine, sexy, mm-hmm. whatever the adjective you want to use that describes an incredible woman. Mm-hmm. But why did I say build wealth like a man? Mm-hmm. Because most men, we were taught from childhood to be providers, yep. to be aggressive, mm-hmm. to be okay with making a lot of money, to be okay with being the boss. Mm. But most women were not taught that.
Nope.
So when a woman is aggressive, she gets criticized.
Yep, especially a black woman.
She gets called the B word.
Mm.
Okay,
right.
Especially black women.
Right.
Or they're aggressive, and I'm saying that's so unfair. Mm-hmm. So I think it's awesome. Mm-hmm. And if a man is married to a woman, one of our jobs as a godly husband is to help nurture the potential that is in our wives.
Wow.
And if that's millionaire or billionaire potential and you help bring it out as a husband, mm-hmm. that's good for you.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Oh man, you're about to make me emotional up in here. Yeah. That's so good to hear. That's really good to hear. That's really awesome. Okay, I love that. So my husband and I have been fortunate enough to be able, as we've been able to build wealth, to be able to leverage our resources for various opportunities that mm-hmm. have come up. And one of the things that I remember that the church has done the same for us. Like there was this time when we first moved to Atlanta, me and the kids moved before because my husband had to finish up with a job. And he stayed back in Texas. And at the time, again, we didn't have no money. We were trying to figure it out with these young kids, and we were young. And we saved up this money to buy this car, right? We bought a cash car, and it turned out to be a lemon. Oh. So it was a bad car. And so I'm in Atlanta with the kids, stressed. They were like it was 2 kids under 3. And then my husband is, still in Dallas, trying to figure it out, trying to finish out his job. And then we spend all of our money and buy this car that doesn't work. And I remember that he was training one of the people in our church's daughters, and he just noticed like he was stressed, and somehow he found out that he was having a hard time. And he said, "What do you need? How can I help you?" And he told him, I don't know if you can help me, but I just bought this car and it's actually a lemon and we can't get our money back. I kind of need a car." He said, "Oh, okay, great. I got a car." And he had like a little sports car that he didn't use that often, that he let my husband use to get back and forth to work. And that just was a great example of how him having wealth, he was able to actually take advantage of opportunities to leverage it for the kingdom. And so do you have any like stories
Wow.
like that, or
Oh
just
my God.
any thoughts?
So many. I love the language you use. Leverage it for the kingdom. So first of all, let me say that when God gives us the ability to make wealth,
Yeah.
okay, Deuteronomy 8:18. So when people say, well, God doesn't have anything to do with money, well, why did Moses say, don't forget God, because he gives us the ability to make wealth?
Yep.
So God does give that ability to us, but on different levels.
Yep.
Okay. But why? One of it is to leverage it for the kingdom, to be a blessing. We are blessed to be a blessing. So I like to talk about 5 purposes of money very quickly. The first purpose is to advance God's kingdom. So whenever we make money, whenever we start a business, whenever we're going into an endeavor, my first question, okay, how are you going to bless God's kingdom? And that's something that really should be determined in advance.
Wow.
Because if you haven't determined it in advance, once the money comes, you can be sidetracked. So advance God's kingdom. Number 2, to support your family, to be a blessing to your family, because you have to take care of your family.
Yes.
Number 3, to carry out your call in life. Everybody has a different call. Some people, it may take multi-millions, and some people hundreds of thousands, some people billions.
Yeah.
But we want to have enough money to carry out whatever God has called us to do.
That's good.
4th thing, to help people, okay, which is what you're talking about. You can't give something that you don't have. So God blesses us to be a blessing to other people.
Yeah.
And then the 5th thing is to enjoy. It's okay to
Really?
enjoy wealth.
We can enjoy
We can enjoy it. Yes, it's okay to buy a nice house and a nice car and all that. It just should not be the priority. And so, yes, enjoying it is really something that everybody should experience.
That's really good.
But I don't believe you get a chance to experience that unless you have done those other things.
Yeah, that's good.
We have it the other way around. We like to enjoy it, and then if we have something left. So your story is a great story.
Yeah.
And I had the same type of story early in my investment career. My first year as a stockbroker, what they used to call us back in the 80s, I made $23,000.
Wow.
My second year, I made $24,000. And my third year, the stock market crashed in 1987.
Wow. Wow.
I'm like, what have I gotten myself into?
Right.
And there was a mentor of mine who loaned me some money.
Yeah.
Because because he had it like that.
Yeah.
And then of course, when I started making money, I went to pay him back. And he said, you don't have to pay me back.
Wow.
That was an investment.
Wow.
That's what he told me.
That's amazing.
And so he said, pass it on to somebody else.
That's what you do.
That's what he told me.
We have been a beneficiary of so many small and big blessings along the way. And that's exactly why I'm here, why I desire to continue to pass it on.
Yes. Well, you're doing a great job.
Thank you. Thank you. And then lastly, so there's like this weird, and I think this may be where people, when they think about money and the Bible and the career, there can be this weird illusion of success that you can have when you've been successful at lots of things, and because some of us, sometimes things come a little natural to us, right? And so we could be real good at it. We can, invest in our education. And one of the things that I always think about, my mentor, my real estate mentor, even though he's done probably over 10,000 real estate deals, he owns over 1,500 units over the U.S. I mean, he's just very accomplished. He still will pray and ask God for guidance when he's making decisions, even though he knows 10 strategies on how to solve the problem. He will still submit and ask God for wisdom. And I just think that's beautiful.
I do too.
That's awesome.
Well, I do that. And I have been doing that my entire business career. And I obviously do it as a pastor.
Yes,
you know.
yes.
But a lot of business people don't rely on the wisdom of God through the scriptures. So here's what I have been doing, and this is no exaggeration, for probably 35 plus years. And I'm on my game, which is what I'm going to tell you I do, probably 90% of the time.
Wow.
And that is, I read a chapter of Proverbs every day.
Wow.
So if it's March 1st, I read Proverbs 1.
Oh.
If it's March 2nd, I read Proverbs 2. Proverbs has 31 chapters, which coincides with most months.
Yeah.
So you read a proverb based on the day of the month it is.
Oh, that's good. I'm doing that.
So the 15th of the month, you read Proverbs 15.
Wow.
And you just do that over and over and over every month. And I'm telling you, God does something through the scriptures. And it's amazing. I might be going through a business issue. And that day, Proverbs speaks to me. So one of the ways that I make sure that I am submitting my business desires, my financial goals, and ambition to the Lord is through reading the Bible and asking God to give me wisdom and to show me how I can be a blessing.
That's so good. That's great. I hope you guys got those tips, because I'm about to start reading Proverbs every day now.
Every day. Yeah. And it's easy. It doesn't take long.
No, it doesn't. I love it. Okay. So this was such a great conversation. I want you to just talk about, like, you guys could have just bought one of the many churches that are available in Atlanta, but God gave you the vision for your church to purchase an entire commercial development.
Sure did.
Like when you guys think, when you hear commercial development, think Lowe's, think Petco, think commercial space, right? What is that about, and what is your vision for Project Soar?
I think you're going to love what I'm going to say, because you are a real estate expert. And so I'm going to say something that I mentioned to Bishop T.D. Jakes probably 10 or 12 years ago. And even Bishop Jakes said, wow, I've never thought about that. And here's the statement. Church real estate is the most underutilized real estate in the world. Yeah. Because you use it primarily on Sundays.
Yeah, one day a week.
And a little bit during the week if you have a midweek service. At best, you might have a school or something like that. But for most churches, it is real estate that sits dormant, that is not blessing the community, except for those services, and it's not producing income.
Yeah, it's a large amount of acreage.
Yes, a large amount of acreage is all this square footage.
Yeah.
So that always bothered me for some reason. And I began to pray, and I believe God put on my heart. He said, whenever you all are ready to buy property, I want you to not approach it just as a ministry asset, but as a business asset that could help the church for generations to come, meaning an income producer. And it could bless the community, because now you don't just have church people coming in there. We're doing an event center. So where we do church on a Sunday will also be used for conferences and events and things like that. So that's how we bless the community.
Love it.
And so it's a multi-purpose commercial real estate property. We bought a property where other businesses were already on it, and now they pay us rent.
Love it.
Okay?
Love it.
So we're landlords now. And then we're redeveloping it. We're keeping some of those business. We have a restaurant already on it. And then we have a pet store called Petco. They pay us now. And then we're redeveloping it. So it's going to be a commercial property that happens to be owned by a church.
I love that.
Okay?
I love that.
And we're going to use the church's space, mainly the auditorium and conference rooms and multipurpose rooms, for purposes that are outside of ministry.
I love that.
And so that's the concept. How can we turn this property into an income producing property that will bless generations to come financially and bless people who can use it for multi-purposes?
I love it. It's taking Jesus to the people.
Absolutely.
Instead of like waiting on them to like walk in the door.
That's exactly right.
I love that. I love that.
So that's the concept.
This has been a great conversation,
Thank
Pastor
you.
Lee. Thank you so much. Where can people find you? Where can they connect with you?
Thank you. They can go on my website, leejenkinsstewardship.com.
Yes.
Or they can find me on social media at The Stewardship Coach. Again, The Stewardship Coach is where I dispense a lot of my knowledge and experience.
He drops gems. He's downplaying it right now, but y'all have to follow him, The Stewardship Coach. He drops so many gems. If you love this conversation, you have to follow him because you're going to learn so much.
Thank you so much. And then, of course, I'm on Instagram, just Lee Allen Jenkins. That's more my personal thing.
Yes.
But
you can see him hanging around Europe and the Caribbean and all those things.
Hey, I'm trying to enjoy some of that hard work.
Yeah, you said number 5. You said enjoy.
Yeah. So that's one of the advantages of being 60 years old plus.
Yes, which is crazy,
which
y'all.
is hard for me to believe.
Yes.
But I would like to say this to our young people, that what you do in your 30s and 40s, even your 20s, but certainly the sweet spot is the 30s and 40s, will determine how you live in your 60s plus.
Wow, that's good.
And now that I'm that age, I see a lot of my friends suffering and not doing well because they did not manage their 30s very well.
All right.
And their early 40s very well.
I love it.
So
this is why you guys need to be in the room. And so if you're here and you've been blessed by this conversation and you're like, okay, what's my next step? I actually have a free Facebook group where people like me and Pastor Lee and just other people who are faith driven, who are, doing this for a purpose, who we really are trying to steward our time and our resources well. You can connect with us for free. And so go to the link in the show notes and you can join the free Facebook group. And I look forward to meeting you. And if you haven't already, subscribe to this episode. Thank you so much. I will see you on the next one. Hey friend, have you been enjoying this podcast and you're like, okay, Erica, how can I connect with you and other of your amazing guests that are on the podcast? You can do that within the Owning It and Living It Facebook group. I have the Owning It and Living It Facebook group to help to foster community with other like-minded real estate investors. Folks are sharing advice, I'm sharing tips, and we're fostering community so we can help take our real estate investments to the next level. If you are ready to do that, I want you to join the Owning It and Living It Facebook group. You can go to the link in the bio to join today.